Chris Rock and Donald Glover says cancel culture is making TV boring.
Mr. Reagan.
The keto diet is one of the quickest ways to achieve a younger looking appearance and to burn fat. This diet has been shown time and time again in studies to flatten stomachs, burn belly fat, and to give unparalleled anti-aging benefits. The problem, however, is that following a strict keto diet is difficult, if not impossible, to the average person. Eating just one bite of the wrong type of food, or even taking a supplement that you're unaware has carbs, can reverse the effect of all the hard work that you put in that day. That's why I highly recommend my favorite keto power, Keto Elevate from BioTrust. It has ingredients that actually give you the weight loss and anti-aging benefits of ketosis without the hassle of a strict keto diet. Now, of course, you do have to practice a keto diet. You just have to be quite as strict as ordinary. So this does help quite a bit. Now, I fluctuate between doing keto and doing intermittent fasting, doing keto and intermittent fasting, and then sometimes simply just keeping a low calorie count using a balanced diet. So I kind of go between each of those three things. Occasionally, I'll have a binge day. Of course, you can't do that. With keto, you can't eat pizza, you can't eat carbs. So it's a bit tough to stay on. But when you're doing keto, definitely get this powder. It is fantastic. It definitely will help you out. Keto Elevate from BioTrust is now 51% off by going to ketowithreagan.com. That's ketowithreagan.com, or by visiting the link in the description below. I love this. I love this. It's such a great perspective on this whole thing. So Childish Gambino, which is his rock star name ever since he's become a musician, I know him as Donald Glover because one of my favorite shows ever is a show called Community, and he was an actor on the show Community.
Oh, and for the record, there was an episode of Happy Days where a guy literally jumped over a shark, and it was the best one.
Fantastic comedy actor. So he admits that TV films are boring because people are afraid of getting canceled. And this is something I hadn't really considered before, the fear of getting canceled. My perspective on the reason that TV shows and films have become boring, and I've postulated about this quite a lot myself, is that people want to go to their Hollywood parties and talk to their Hollywood friends about their Hollywood shows. And there's this kind of one-upsmanship in Hollywood, like, oh, I made this amazing TV show that explores the problems with race in society and how evil police officers are and stuff like this. And oh, really? Oh, well, I made this amazing TV show about feminism and how abortions are so great and liberating and all this kind of stuff, right? So everybody's always competing about who's going to make the next show, TV show or movie that signals their virtue the strongest. Right. And I feel like that's how Hollywood works. It's like a clique. It's sort of like high school. You get your popular kids, you got your nerds, you got your athletes, and all of these, the kids that are in student government are always trying to one up each other on how woke they can be out here in Hollywood. And so that's why you're getting a lot of these TV shows made this way. And another thing I've noticed that's really annoyed me, which Donald Glover probably would not agree with me on, is that they tend to be hiring a lot of people who I don't think are the best actors for the parts, because they're trying to sort of inject racial diversity into everything. So you can have a project, like I noticed there was some project on Netflix that was set in like the Renaissance, and I'm looking at this I don't know what it is, trailer of some TV show, and it's like on some kind of a ship, some kind of like a pirate ship. But the captain of the ship is a black woman. I'm just watching this and I'm thinking, how is it set in like the Renaissance and the captain of the ship is a black woman? That doesn't make any sense. And it just like it didn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. But Hollywood wants to inject all this virtue signaling crap, and this racial diversity and stuff like that into their films, and their films become anachronistic. But most importantly, I think they become boring. Like Donald Glover is saying, they're so focused on this part, this virtue signaling political part of filmmaking, and that they're forgetting just to tell good stories. Now, do you have to have some kind of morality in your story? Yeah. But here's the thing about that. Everybody knows what's good. Everybody knows what's bad. So to make a character do the right thing or struggle to do the right thing is very easy if you're on the same page as the people watching the film. If, on the other hand, you want to express to the people in the audience that what they think is not actually what they think is good isn't good, and what they think is bad isn't bad, and you try to make a film that actually contradicts the audience's perception of what good and evil is, then a lot of times they'll be watching the film or the TV show and they'll be confused. They won't understand what the hell this show is about, because your perceptions of what's good and evil are different than what people watching the show's perceptions of good and evil are. And they won't understand it, right? They won't understand what the motivations of your characters are. They won't understand what the intentions of your characters are, because they won't understand who's good and who's bad, or what anything's about, because instead of working within the parameters of already existing morality and ethics that we already have here in America, you're going into this like bizarre idea of what is good and what's bad. And I think all of Hollywood has kind of gotten that direction. They do have their own sort of woke morality that it's just not popular. Nobody perceives the woke morality and goes, yes, that's what I want to teach my kids. I mean, maybe a few people do, but I mean, it's just wrong. And what you end up with is stories that just don't make any sense. You're not paying attention to the story, and when you do pay attention to the story, you're just filling it with all this propaganda, and it doesn't make good stories, doesn't make good stuff. So, and this guy's finally recognized this. Actor and Grammy award-winning musician Donald Glover says television shows and movies are becoming increasingly boring because people are afraid of getting canceled. Glover, also known by his stage name Childish Gambino, made the comments via his official Twitter account. He says, saw people on here having a discussion about how tired they are of reviewing boring film and TV shows. We're getting boring stuff and not even experimental mistakes because people are afraid of getting canceled. So they feel like they can only experiment with the aesthetic, like with how the film looks. Also, because some of them know that they're not good. Well, that's right. And this is an idea that I hadn't really considered, that a lot of these people maybe they want to do other stories, but they know they can't do those stories because they're afraid if they do them, they'll get canceled, right? And so that they go the safe route of making the woke material that maybe they don't even want to make. Now, Chris Rock also weighed in on this recently. He went on a show called The Breakfast Club. It's a radio show that a lot of black people listen to. He was pushing a new film that he's in, it's called Spiral. The film is called Spiral. It's the latest in the Saw movies, right? The latest installment in the Saw movies. And so he went on this show to talk about that film and promote the movie. And they asked him about cancel culture. And what he said ends up being a little bit similar to what Donald Glover says, right? He comes to the conclusion, and it seems independent, totally independent of what Donald Glover said. It doesn't look like he read that in an article somewhere and thought, oh yeah, that's right, I'm going to repeat that talking point, because the way he gets to the point is through comedy, right? Through his perspective in comedy. So let's hear what he has to say about that.
Honestly, to me, it's a disrespect. It's people disrespecting the audience. Like, oh, you think you know more than the audience. What happens is everybody gets safe.
Right.
And when everybody gets safe and nobody tries anything, things get boring. I see a lot of unfunny comedians. I see unfunny TV shows. I see unfunny award shows. I see unfunny movies. Because everybody's scared to make a move. But now, you got a place where people are scared to talk. That's not, especially in America, you're scared to talk.
I do think that there is a big problem right now in Hollywood of hiring people, like I said before, because they're black or because they're gay or something like that, or because they're a woman. And I mentioned this before on the show. I've worked for female directors, and all but one time, the female director was a total psycho, right? And at least in my experience, that tended to be, I think, this is my perspective, this is my perception of it, is that these women wanted to be taken seriously, and they thought that the way men are taken seriously is that you act like assholes. But almost every director I've ever had that's been a man has been like a decent person, has been like a respectable person, nice to everybody, respects the crew. I mean, you do get a-hole male directors as well, but for the most part, you get pretty chill people. But these women that I've had directing are just very aggressive. Yeah, and these women, they're very angry. They act very angry. They act very assholish because they think that's how they're going to get respect. But as I've said before, when men do this or women do this or whomever, it doesn't really matter what your gender is. People are nice to you to your face because they don't want to get yelled at. They don't want to get fired. They don't want you to like lose your mind. They're scared of you in the sense that people are scared of crazy people. Right? They're not scared of you like, oh, if I get in a fight with this person, I'm going to lose. They're scared of you like, ugh, I don't want to deal with this, you know? But then when they go home at night and they talk to their wife or husband or whatever, and their spouse says, hey, how was your day? They're just like, my director is such an asshole. You know, they're going to talk about you poorly behind your back. So, I think this idea of hiring people because they're a woman or because they're Hispanic or because they're black or because they're gay or something like this, it will only end in disaster. You have to hire people because they're good. Is it possible to find a good female director? Yeah, it is. It's just very unusual. It's just very rare, which I actually think makes really good female directors kind of special in a way. Do you get good black directors, good Asian directors? Good, of course you get directors of every kind of type that are very good. But the vast majority of really great directors are white men, and that's not about the world being racist. That just turns out that's just how things are. If we find in 10 years that a bunch of Chinese women start directing films and they turn out to be way better than any male director ever was, I'll say, okay, Asian women, turns out they're the best directors in the world. I don't really have a problem with that, but that hasn't been the case so far. And this idea of not allowing white men to direct because they're white men is ridiculous. We're going to take this pool of people who turn out to be the best at a particular job. We're going to say, you're not allowed to do that job anymore. And so, you are. And this is true of writers. This is true of directors. This is true of actors. This is true of every kind of aspect of filmmaking. They're trying to supplant all the white men with every other kind of group, right? Unless you're gay. If you're a gay white man, you can do it. And so you're getting inferior talent is another big problem. And so he's not going that far in saying that, but a lot of people went nuts after he posted this. A lot of people were just like, oh, Donald Glover isn't woke. We don't like him. So now Donald Glover is at risk of getting canceled. But anyway, the problem with me is that if I got to not do Hollywood stories, because if I do Hollywood stories, I have too much of a strong perspective on all the Hollywood stuff. Anyway, guys, you have a great day, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars. And it's been said if we lose that war, and in so doing lose this way of freedom of ours, history will record with the greatest astonishment that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.